while showering this morning. Oh, wait a minute. No, I haven't showered since last Wednesday. I was brushing my teeth, yeah. And I was like, no, I just mentioned that I haven't showered since last Wednesday. Michelle, will you sit right to my right? Okay. Good. I was thinking, you know what? Confucius is a Taoism by virtue of that very piece of advice. If the government's bad, drop out. That's Confucius' advice. Well, what are you going to do when you drop out as a Confucian? You're going to just enjoy like the arts and such, and that's what the seven sages of the Bamboo Grove and our other POD hippies did. Okay, let me scare myself when I watch this by doing that. Okay, good. I've done that. All right, check that one off the list. All right, Chris, stop giving me aggressive, passive-aggressive body language. Pull out both packets, please. Pull out your notebooks, please. Did you make tea?
Yeah.
You're very good children. It's a little slow. Whoa.
Mr. Bro?
Yes, sir.
I don't think I got the qianlong one. I was late to class, so I'm going to get
Oh.
it again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and I still owe one and a half weeks.
Like, day one of Asian milk.
Oh.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Actually, before we settle into our readings and all sort of thing, have your notebooks up, because I just want to show you a couple of things that on the assumption that you do find enough value in these notebooks at all, that depends on your note-taking and all sort of stuff, to think that they might have any use if you pull them off. I would put a big box that says, when I go to the Forbidden City, except a shorter version of that, touring the Forbidden City, go to Beijing, I'm going to show you some things that if you go to the Forbidden City, you'll see, and you'll be able to like go, there's a story to that. Ready? You sure?
Yeah.
This is extra special.
Just to see it.
Okay, so what was the succession problem that Kangxi bequeathed to his son Yongzheng, who was Qianlong's father? And Yongzheng said, I'm going to change that system so that my successor doesn't have to go through what I went through. Kangxi's system was what?
It wasn't primogeniture, so it was different. It wasn't like his eldest son got the throne. It was like some sort of council decided.
Exactly.
The Manchu thing, like the councils.
Exactly, Manchu thing. So more of the nomadic or the north of the Great Wall tribal systems of the former nomads and such, the quote barbarians. The Mongols did this type of thing, the Manchu did this type of thing. So Kangxi had a council system. Huh?
Isn't that kind of like Sage King like that in the sense because that's what like the Chinese did, or they passed on to go they thought they should have.
Well,
yeah, the director for Shun.
Yao rejected his son altogether and gave it to Shun. And then Shun gave it to you, yeah, but then you turned it into, well, you didn't actually. You wanted to give it to somebody who merited it, but the tradition says the people clamored for Yu's son, and that's why we have dynasties, and that's probably propaganda to support the Zhou dynasty.
Sorry, I have a question. I thought that the council was something they'd historically done when Kangxi broke it by saying it would be his eldest son, then his eldest son turned out to be rotten, and he was really upset, and then he just selected someone else after that.
Oh wait, no, that was Kangxi's. Kangxi chose a son, and then that son of Kangxi's eldest son was a dirtbag, and that's why he chose Qianlong. Is that how you pronounce his name?
No, he didn't choose Qianlong, he chose Qianlong's father. But yes, you're right. His oldest son.
Oh yeah, no, Kangxi chose Qianlong's father, and then Qianlong's father chose Qianlong to be the emperor.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hate that we're not using Qianlong's father's name because he's a great emperor.
I forget
He
his
deserves to be remembered.
He is the three
Yongzheng.
great emperors. He's the middle one, Yongzheng. Now he only served for 13 years, but he
Alright,
was
so
great.
Kangxi chose Yongzheng. Who chose Qianlong? But
Kangxi did not choose Yongzheng.
wait, who chose Yongzheng? Wait,
That
what?
was the whole controversy, right? That was the whole controversy, right? When Kangxi died,
He had like a little seal.
it took like a week for them to sort things out and figure out who, the doors were closed, everybody was like on pins and needles, are we gonna have a civil war here, are we gonna, right? And a week later they announced his son Yongjong, number 4. I was not under the impression that what we read said that he chose Yongjong.
Oh, okay.
I was under the impression that the council system was, but you know what, I might be wrong there, so
Well,
fact check,
true.
fact check.
It's true. On page 2 of the qianlong, it says,
Speak up, woman.
though it risked infighting, such a method had the advantage of helping to ensure that leadership fell into capable hands, and it was in that way that all of Yongzheng's predecessors had been chosen to ascend the throne.
So what was-
wait,
what was-
no, it says not Yongzheng himself.
Okay, so how was Yongjong chosen on page 2?
Wait, many years before Yongzheng's father, the Kangxi Emperor, had chosen to depart from Manchu he proclaimed his firstborn son to be successor, an experiment that ended badly when the crown prince turned out to be vicious, erratic, and inclined to abuse of power. In a stunning reversal of fortune, the ne'er-do-well was arrested, stripped of his titles, and thrown into prison. Deeply disillusioned, Kangxi bitterly swore he would never name any other heirs, and when he died in late 1722, there was much speculation about which of his remaining sons would succeed to the throne. So it's kind of both. We were both right.
Because I feel like yeah, he was the favorite to be chosen. Like he said, wasn't a surprise that he got chosen.
Okay,
I think that's what.
all
But
right.
then Yongzhe was the one who departed from tradition and did the whole sealed little box thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So are we to gather from this, I hadn't noticed this detail, are we to gather from this that Kangxi, this great emperor, did not have the foresight to go, I'm going to like dictate or whatever
Yeah.
the succession process, so that, right, that's what he implies here, that there was no clear like directions from Kangxi, when I die, choose a successor this way, because he broke from the traditional precedent of councils choose. I was so taken away by one more cool point about Kangxi. What was impressive about him here? He imprisoned his son, his oldest son. I mean, I'm sorry, just what a man, right? What a great man, right? And family, no. Good governance above all, right? Dirtbag, prison for you, just amazing. And by the way, if you watch Boo Boo Jingxi, the great TV drama, you see the star is Prince number 4, and that's Yongjong, his son, who ends up, right? And so you see Prince number 1, the dirtbag and all sort of stuff, and you see 36 episodes of Kangxi dealing with this thing. Right? It's an amazing historical drama to really have fun with it. But all right, and so Yongjong's. Okay, never again. We're not going to go through this anymore. I too am one of the 3 great emperors, so I'm going to solve this problem by Little Seal. It was actually a double system, right? It was kind of like the Shazam ring, where you got Shaz on one side and Zam on the other. When you put them together, Shazam.
Wait.
That's a 1950 superhero. Never mind.
I thought he had 2 copies of the same thing.
It was.
Okay. I was
It
about
was.
to say, did you need both of them? Like, one of them
It
is
was
half
actually
a
like
ring.
It was actually like a Lucky Charms secret code ring, and you had to have one half of the ring and the other half of the ring. Yeah, but it was the
Does it
same
have
type
to
of
be
idea.
a toy inside a Lucky Charms box?
So anyway, so if you ever go to the Forbidden City, this is what I want to show you. Whoops, not that. Oh, wrong computer. Wrong. Turn off the light.
First world problems, too many computers.
Okay. This is just quite an interesting picture in itself. This is the Forbidden City. This is the palace. And this photograph was taken in 1903, 3 years after 8 nations invaded the Forbidden City, chased the Empress Dowager Cixi out after the Boxer Uprising, right? So this was when China had its knees broken, right? And look at 3 years after, look how overgrown it is, look how in disrepair it is. So this is more than the halfway point of the century of humiliation. And the disrepair of this really shows just how humiliated, because this is the imperial palace. This is the headquarters, the heart of the Forbidden City. And look at it, it's gracefully out of the way. How many of you have been to the Forbidden City? It's amazing that so many of you haven't. That just amazes me. So when you go, just take a moment to just like, really like, you probably will at some point, I would hope. When I was lucky, I spent a summer in Beijing, and we hear all the news about the air apocalypse and the smog and the horrible pollution that's off the charts in terms of particulate matter and all sorts of stuff. When I was there, the skies were blue, the clouds were white, the sun was gold, And I bicycled for like 3 weeks all over Beijing because it's flat. It's a beautiful place to rent a bicycle and just pedal around. Screw tourists and cabs and buses and no, just get a map and pedal around on a bike. I want to go here, pedal, right? And I did that. So it's surprising me that none of you have ever went. Now, so when you go, this is all marble. You can't tell. This entire, the flagstones, pavestones, everything are marble. Do you know what those of you who've been, do you know what the central part is here? The central walkway? Yeah?
Wasn't it for like the emperor lot, and there's somewhere on the sides for like his concubines or his
You're close.
officials or anything?
China's back, and the Forbidden City is now clean, and this is the same palace. I forgot to tell you just what I will share with you, because architecturally it's just interesting too. There's only 3, and I only know the names of 2, so I'm like, what's the third one? I apologize for not knowing. But this double eave, or actually triple eave, 1, 2, 3, architectural temple style, is only in this palace in the Forbidden City. The second one, what do you think? That is given the honor of having the imperial architectural roof. When you see a 2-skirted roof like this, it's the imperial. So again, there's only 3 in all of China that will have this. So when you're in the presence of these, you're like, wow.
It's like the summer.
The second one is Confucius Temple, which is where we're going for my interim semester again, like last year and such. And so you know, the Son of Heaven, the political power, Confucius, the moral power, they actually did consent to letting Confucius Temple have this majestic special architecture. And the third one, what the hell the third one? I forgot. But in any case, notice they have it gated up now. You can't walk up it. If you look really closely, maybe I can. Yeah, pretty good. Okay. Can you see the details? Wow, that's really nice. Okay, that's about as good as I can do. Get out. Let me move this out of the way. Oh.
Okay.
Slow adult.
Very slow.
You can see that there is something here. Anybody want to guess what it is?
It looks like something's carved in the image.
It's a dragon. It's a dragon design on the walkway there. And so in the center, only the emperor could walk on this. Only the emperor. And this has the sumptuary 5-clawed marble dragon on it. So picture Slattery, picture Qianlong, McCartney, all these people, right? So this is where they were, and this is what they saw and all sorts of stuff. And the right and the left were on the right. You would think it would be the military, the generals, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. The generals were always on the left, because we don't want force on our right hand to outward the emperor. We want the civil. And so our Confucian scholars always entered on the right, and our generals always entered on the left. So the throne, the army, and the bureaucracy, the 3 walkways. And the 3 entrances too. The emperor would go through there, generals through there, and officials through there. And inside, this is what the throne room, which is what we just saw the exterior of. So this is the palace of state. You know, the Forbidden City has just like palace after palace after palace, stretching for like 2 kilometers, right? So there's a lot of them line from north to south, and this is right in the center, because behind this is the private quarters of the emperor and his family and his concubines, the inner court. So it's where they live. So this is where affairs of state were done. And so this is a throne. And
Really good pictures.
yeah, they really are. And you see the bronzes going all the way back to the Shang Dynasty, and here we are now, Qianlong, 3,000 years later. All this stuff, and so Yongzheng had that. My successor's name is written and hidden where? Do you remember exactly where?
Above the throne someplace.
Above this, because this hangs at an angle. It's sort of looking down at you like that, right? So, and it's on top of this. So that's where he had it hidden. So when you go to the Forbidden City, right, you can just like tell the story of that sign. Like really the longest serving emperor ever, because Qianlong was. He served longer than Kangxi, but he stepped off the throne so dad's granddad's record wasn't broken. And he died, he ruled behind the scenes as he read for another 4 or 5 years. So that's the throne room. Huh?
What does it say? Do you know what it says up there?
Let's see, well, that's Da. That's me. I don't know this. No, I don't know this.
Jungda green or something.
Huh?
Jungda gray green.
Gray? Gray green?
No. Like something G something.
Isn't that Guang? It's Guang. Yeah.
So what's this?
Jung.
And what does Jung mean?
Like
Like what?
official something. Something like.
Why are you yelling at me? Okay, anyway, let's not get caught up in the spokes over that one. Brief but relevant. China watching current events, all sort of stuff. Notice this is their president. You haven't seen him. You'll be seeing him until 2024. He's around. And then he has to go, how am I going to choose my successor because my term is up? Now, politically, this is not a democracy. How would you recommend there be no confusion? The same way that Yongjun was like, okay, this is not going to happen again. Chinese Communist Party, single party dictatorship. The people are not going to vote for him, so how would you manage it? He is one of a 7 or 8 member Politburo, Central Committee, the highest heart of the Chinese Communist Party. These are the true power holders, a handful of them, less than 10. How do you suggest they have a smooth succession?
Pick one of their peers.
Pick one of their peers?
Like, pick one of the people in the council.
And, okay, how?
Hide the message in
It's a question. Now, when Mao died, he had picked somebody, but that was the guy, the general who ended up betraying him and dying in a plane crash. So Mao died without a successor pick, and things got really scary because they were like, oh hell, here we go again, right? Succession problems, always. In any case, I just want to point out to you that she is, here's my hope, and there's evidence that it's true, and so I hope I'm interpreting it correctly, that he is China finally doing what Japan did. When Japan westernized in the Meiji Restoration, they started dressing Western. They started aping Western ways. They rejected their traditional Japanese ways. You look at Japan from the Meiji Restoration of 1860, whatever, to about 1900, 1910, and they look like Asians dressed up like sort of stereotypical Westerners. Top hats, bowlers, they look like London Asians. Monopoly characters with smoother skin, rounder noses, and black hair. Sorry, he's just so handsome, I just want to take this in for a second. His lips are so full, his nose. Sorry, what? How old is he? Don't know, because the Chinese always dye their hair to keep it black so that nobody can guess their age. It's true. Which is sad when you think about Confucianism honoring age. But in any case, I'm going to shut up after I say this point. Xi Jinping quotes an ancient philosopher and offers possible insights into his ... From a great site, The Diplomat, by the way. Is China's Machiavelli, you HOC people, and you former, this class last semester, who is China's Machiavelli from ancient Chinese philosophy? Who basically wrote, you shouldn't be a moral king, you should be deceitful, you should be brutal when you need to be brutal, you should rule through fear, not love.
Wasn't Qin Shi Huangdi?
Qin Shi Huangdi ruled like that because Qin Shi Huangdi said no Confucianism, yes,
Well, it was
whatism, legalism.
Okay.
Legalism. So this guy is quoting the legalist philosopher Han Feizi, who was anti-Confucian and all that sort of thing. But in any case, he also has been here. I think I showed you, right? He was like, I have to I need to really closely study these books, and he was holding a copy of the Analects in his hands, right? And so Mao was burning Confucius books, all sorts of stuff. So here's more evidence that she is going back to ancient Chinese philosophy, which was always political. It was always political. It was about good governance. So what I'm hoping is that China has like gone, okay, Marxism, we tried that Western ideology, and you know what, and we rejected our own way. Japan, Meiji Restoration, Japan, like, no, our traditions are actually good, we're going to re-embrace them. China seems to be going through this now. And it's 70 years after they westernized with Marxism, 1950. It took Japan 60 years. They went through 2 generations of being anti-traditional, and then they returned to their Japanese roots and said there's beauty there and there's good stuff there, so let's embrace them. He seems to be doing this too, and he is the Mao of the next 10 years. In fact, he has more power than anybody since Mao. He has more power than Deng. So it's a very, very, very interesting stuff. Oh, do I have anything else I want to show you?
How did they decide to put Xi Jinping in instead of like somebody else? Like
They do have a council of the Politburo, and they do come to a consensus. Very opaque, closed doors. We have no idea if it's a smiling consensus like, okay, we're all good. We all agree. Let's just all go out together, all 9 of us. They change the numbers of the Politburo. Sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 11, down to 9, then to 7. He just, I think, bumped it back up to 8. Why? And we don't know because nobody's there to tell any secrets. We don't know. It's so opaque, the Politburo. So, because the other possibility is what? That there's not consensus, but instead he won, and the feelings are instead, behind those closed doors, what? Can you, it's a common sense question.
Angry.
All of them?
Competitive.
Huh?
Competitive.
Contested?
Competitive.
Competitive. Yeah, just to break it down real quick and then move on. This is a communist party. It's a communist revolution, and some of them truly do believe economic equality. There should not be rich and poor, and all sort of things. So there are some Maoists. They're called leftists. There are some true socialists still in the Communist Party who are not happy with what Deng committed to by opening up and reforming and capitalizing and allowing some to get rich first. So his argument, others will get rich later. Right? There are some who are still socialists and they don't like these Deng reforms. So you've got rightists and leftists still in the top party. And so there could be, yeah.
so basically, there's diversity in the party, but you just can't leave the party, else there's no chance of having any power, right?
Well, there's a chance of having power now economically because you can start a business.
But not like political power.
Political power now.
Why doesn't he kick out people who have different views?
Because people who have different views, who are amongst the 7 or 8 people out of 1.4 billion who made it to the top of 1.4 billion people, always starting out, even if your daddy was Mao Zedong or Deng Xiaoping, even if you're, quote, a princeling, that's what they call the children born to the revolutionary heroes that everybody knows, the founding fathers. Even if you were the son of one of them, you typically start out at a local level. You can't just like, okay, I'm going to be like vice president. No, you start out really low and local, and you work your way up. A few years serving at the village level, then you got a few years at the county level, then a few years at the state level or city level, and then a few years. So it took him 30 years to get to Beijing. He started on the local level. He governed from small to larger to larger to larger over 30 years. So it is meritocratic in that sense. But as you're going up the ranks, up the ladder, you're clearly making very powerful connections with all of the players in each level of government that you're working with, and those above you. So that by the time you make it to the top, Chris, you've got incredibly powerful connections, maybe in the military, maybe in the National Guard, domestic security, maybe in the economy, maybe surely you've got billionaire friends all over the place who, if they're on your side and don't want to lose the influence they have through you, might not be averse at all to, I don't know, being possibly the reason that one of your enemies, the person who wanted to throw you out of power, like suddenly died early. They just woke up dead one day. They woke up dead. We don't know why, mysterious causes. poison, who knows, right? Assassin. So all these sorts of things. So yeah, it's. Oh, one last thing, just because I showed it to the other class. I'm gonna have you. Okay. No, we'll do this at the end. You have tea? Are those all full of tea?
These aren't both tea, these are just.
Well, we had like 3 minutes.
How many people want tea?
There's two over there.
How many people want tea? Just real quick. Can you have?
Okay, let's just.
Oh my God, I'm behind him. Get those, bring him over there.
Are we using like the sink, which is a pot? Is that what we're using?
No, there's tea. Yeah. Oh,
They're
so
just cold.
You're so slow, so slow.
That's disgusting.
A sink of tea from today and yesterday is disgusting. No, it's called
Is it all
a basin, right? Oh,
Okay.
is it all tea? No, sometimes I piddle in there when You know, this is how people used to go to the bathroom. They had one of these under their bed, but in the ages before toilets, a chamber pot they were called. They were in your bed chamber, and you would pull out your chamber pot, and you would daintily hike your skirt, and you would tinkle. Maybe that's why we call it tinkle, because it's a sound of pee-pee tinkling onto porcelain. Tinkle, 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 tinkle. Porcelain. Listen, this is tinkling.
Please don't.
Tinkling. You hear it tinkle? Okay, so that's would you like some nice some nice yellow, warm porcelain tinkling fluid? There you are, enjoy. Oh, my appetite is now so piqued. All right, you can turn back around now, Frankie. Yes, Louis.
Does anybody other than you listen to these recordings?
No, I do it just for my own amusement. Sometimes I go home and I was like, I want to hear the first 10 minutes because that was. See, the goal is to like somehow make impromptu like that, just like that. Yeah, it's like go places.
Just joking about pee the whole time for 5
Not
minutes.
the whole time. That wasn't 5 minutes. That was 2 minutes. Now, okay, so please look over your things first, and just a couple questions. Now when we come back next time, we're finished with the High Qing, because the second half of this chapter takes you to 1840, and in fact 1850, as I said in my little introductory video. So, before we leave the High Qing, 2 things. You sort of saw that if my claim is true, and I do follow Xi Jinping and current events very closely, if my claim is true that China is leaving its Marxist ideology, its Western ideology, in a newfound appreciation and re-embrace of its traditional ways of governance, its traditional institutions, even succession ones, on and on and on. What are your final thoughts about, based on our readings that we've had up to this point, about the imperial institution and the Qing, about Kangxi, about Qianlong? What questions do you have? And should I assign this little first chapter on Qianlong to future classes, because I haven't before. So I'm curious what your thoughts were of that. Now let me just quickly make some fresh golden liquid while you gather your thoughts.
I have a clarifying question, not a discussion question. What does it mean to be a prince? Because I know in the Western culture, if you were born to royalty, like if you were a boy that was born to royalty, you were automatically a prince. But
Apparently not in this. So because he was declared a prince, despite the fact that his father was the emperor, right?
Yeah.
So my impression is this, and I haven't studied this, I don't know, but my impression is this, that because you could have, like Kangxi, over 20 sons, a prince gets a higher income and all sorts of stuff, and so it's a drain on the revenues that come from the taxes and such, right? So you don't want to like pay every single son that you have this high standard of living, and so you award it to them when you find that they're deserving of it. So it's a kind of a carrot too, to like keep your kids good, because they're trying to earn the status of prince. Right now they're just like imperial sons. So a prince would be a status above imperial son status. That's what I gather, Monet.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
Is there like a hierarchy with like the concubines as to which son gets like favored first, something like that, or is it just based on merit?
No, as you heard, Qianlong's mom was a concubine, and that gave him kind of a, I think it even said low-ranking concubine, didn't it?
How do you have like a low okay.
There were ranks of concubines.
Well, depending on how much the emperor liked you.
Like I'm a concubine, I outrank you, concubine, right? You have a pecking order of, a hierarchy of concubines even.
Everything has a hierarchy.
Everything's hierarchical. Oh, now, and guys, I want to hear your thoughts on the imperial concubinage system too. Is there anything that China should bring back? Ha 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 ha. Sexist joke. Ah, hate me, hate me. All right. You get it, right? Should China bring back the concubine system? Perhaps that's an institution that deserves to return. 1 man, 40 women. In pecking order. Prepare your thoughts. Let's look back over.
We're almost there.
So can somebody start the conversation? What was the value of the qianlong reading? Was there any value to it?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was kind of a cool read. I definitely saw a theme though, just like as a comment, that both what's this author's name again?
Mark Elliott is
No, this one's Mark Elliott. Who's this guy again?
Nigel Cameron.
Alright, Cameron and Elliott. They both use I think in both of their chapters, like funny stories about, almost in a way, specifically about hunting with a Manchu. So like this one has Kangxi like saved King Qianlong from getting killed by a bear. And the other one, I forget, it was sometime before where Kangxi went on a hunting party with who was it? Was it Verbeest? It was Verbeest, yeah. So I don't know, I just saw that theme. I thought it was just interesting. I mean, there's definitely a value to it, but we kind of got a background of how serious he was. Like he seems a lot different from Kangxi, even though Kangxi like talked to him a lot and they're really close.
How does he seem different from Kangxi?
He seems a lot more. He seems a lot more like solemn. No, not really like solemn, but he seems a lot more. Kangxi seemed a lot. He seemed out there, kind of funny and kind of interesting. He's still Qianlong's still interesting, but he seems a lot more serious and sort of like this is what we're going to do. And he commented on that, but I forget what it was. Maybe you guys can find it.
It was about when Kangxi shot the boar, and then Qianlong was just sitting there. And he's like, "Oh, this guy's like gonna fend off the enemies." Was that kind of attitude, like not very,
Like what? What was the last part?
not very, like,
Not afraid.
yeah.
Fearless. And yeah, was he fearless? Did you get the sense that he was fearless after all?
No, because there was something like that he revealed something about himself somewhere. What are you talking about?
I mean, what do we get about? We see Kangxi up until maybe the age 20 in this reading. Is that? Would you agree he's around 20 maybe? And so by the time he's a 20-year-old young man, and does he take the throne by the end of your reading? Okay, so what's your impression of him? Because we're going to see him when you go back to your Cameron to finish that chapter. What are you going to see? The year 1793. Now here again, dates are useful. I finally know what year Qianlong was born. Anybody catch it? 1711 he was born. 1711. So it's useful because in 1793, King George III's ambassador Macartney is going to negotiate with Qianlong. How old is Qianlong when England comes with some request? 1711 to 1793. 82. He's 82 years old. That's really old, right? That's 30 years older than me. And I'm more than 30 years older than you. So that's really old. Now, what are your impressions of him as a young man?
I was surprised reading this chapter just how much effort and time, like, previously the way I'd understood it was kind of all of the children, all the sons were kind of groomed to be leaders, but then one son in particular was lucky enough to be chosen to become the next emperor. With Qianlong, sorry, what is it? Qianlong. With Qianlong, it was practically from his birth he's been groomed to be the emperor, and I honestly was shocked at the extent of the education that they put him through. They talk about it mostly on pages 4 and 5, where it's just talking about how he has to learn not only his own history, but so he learns the Chinese and the Manchu history. He learns 3 different languages. He has to know the Analects and the Mencius, great learning and the doctrine of the mean, all different reported Chinese texts.
Emily, I mentioned this not in History of China before this year. So in China and the West this year, I did mention in this, just very briefly, in the Song Dynasty, it went from the 5 Confucian classics as what we had to study to be elite Confucian scholars to the 4 books. Those are the 4 books that we found, those 4. Much shorter.
So I was really surprised, but then also with all of that preparation, which it sounds like everyone had to go through, the royals, they didn't have to participate in the examinations, which I thought was a fault, because just because you've done all of it, done all of the studying, you can claim to be a scholar, and you don't have to prove it apparently if you're royal. So then you could actually be a bit of an idiot and just get away with it.
Because it's the only inheritance-based institution in the civilization. It's the only one that wasn't abolished with Qin.
So I don't know. That was just
Why was that one sacred? Like, why would that one not? Why would they keep that one out of all the ones to keep? Like,
Because who elevated Confucianism to be the state ideology for all aspiring elites, in other words, government officials? Who made that decision? Who was the Constantine of China? Han Wudi, back in the Han Dynasty, right? And he was on that throne, why? Because he inherited it. And so, I mean, I'm sure that played into it to a certain degree. But also, if you don't have a dynastic system, then what does that invite? How preferable is it to not have? Okay, power does pass predictably from father to son, it stays in a family. If that's not the case, then what do you invite then? Competition? Beyond competition? Civil wars of all sorts, yeah. And so...
Well, also there is a check for it. I mean, imagine they haven't decided you have the right to remove them if they're not a good leader. So, you know, you give them a chance and then they can check for it.
So yeah, and so that was the incentive. We've got to keep this mandate. We know that we can be accused of having lost it if we don't rule well. And so we hope our son's not an idiot, and we do the best we can to, like, you think you have it hard at SAS with all your APs? I'm sorry, but Qianlong had it harder.
he had one day off the entire year.
New Year's.
New Year's.
But he seemed to like it, which honestly, I almost had this feeling that he was brainwashed because that from age 5 or something, that's all he's done. It didn't sound like he had any childhood whatsoever, and it drove me crazy. Like, a child needs to be a child.
Maybe that's what made him so serious, was because all he did was study.
But you had, what did you want to say? You sure? You were about to say something.
All the other emperors of the states do this thing that he did, and they turned out more lighthearted. I think also mentioned some of his texts that his father,
Yong
was quite strict as well.
So to what degree, and Kong Shi's son, you remember his first son, I mean, he was vicious, he was a pederast, meaning he was a child molester, right? So he had his playtime.
Nice.
That was completely unnecessary.
Like most things in life. Such as school. Modern school. Because when you're like, he must have been brainwashed like education, I'm like, are you kidding? He's reading the books that I wish I had more time to read. He's reading them. He's reading.
At age 5 and 6, like 7, like, a child doesn't always comprehend everything, and to have such...
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm sorry, can I...
Kids nowadays are given iPhones at 5 and 6.
Well, no, that I didn't,
Yeah.
that I didn't agree
And they're
with.
taught to pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisibly, with liberty and justice for all. Learned it at 5 years old.
I've not-
words. I know what you don't
Any
understand.
idea of
Hey man,
Wait.
I swear. Look at the brainwashing of that every single morning in first grade. There's the flag. Teacher says, everybody get up and say the pledge, and we all get up.
Mr. Burrell,
Brainwashed.
could you please stop comparing ancient, like, not ancient, but like Chinese,
Traditional China.
traditional China to modern day Western. Like, if you're going to compare to the Western civilization, please compare it to the same time period.
I pledge allegiance to the French ancien regime and to the feudal system for which it stands. 3 estates under God, without liberty, without justice. Liberty, and justice. Why don't we have equality in our Pledge of Allegiance? Because the French rebelled for liberty, equality, and brotherhood. Liberty and justice. We don't want that equality thing. That sounds too common. You know the Pledge of Allegiance was only made, enforced during the Cold War? It was to counter the communist thing, the Red Scare, because so many people were starting to go, this capitalism thing is really unfair. Right? People aren't equal after all. And so, I pledge allegiance. With liberty and equality, liberty and justice.
Hold on. But I was.
So I'm sorry, Monet, finish ripping me a new orifice.
I'm done.
Well, I would argue that the United States pledge is not that bad.
What's bad about learning
There's nothing bad
be a
about
benevolent
it.
sage king?
Hold on. Wait. Alright.
Nothing.
Do you guys remember where I'm gonna actually talk about the text. Okay. Remember they were talking about how the first thing they had to learn, like they would memorize like 1,000-character book or something like that. That's what they would do when they were in like first grade. And then later the teacher would explain what it meant. So I don't know, I just wanted to throw that in because we're talking about the Pledge of Allegiance and I doubt many
The 1,000-character classic.
So they would memorize that whole thing, and then later the teacher would tell them what it meant after they had memorized the characters. So interesting. And also, I find it interesting the way like he had two types of education. He had like his Manchu education and his Confucian education. I wonder how those like interacted. Do you think they coalesced? Like they were in like symbiosis. Like one wasn't competing with the other for how he was going to think or how he was going to feel about certain things. Because obviously the Manchu have Sinicized and they've become Chinese, but they might still have these kind of lurking sort of things they do, like Kangxi would sleep naked, and that wasn't becoming of an emperor. I'm sure there's many other things like that. And then they have the whole hunting thing. So I'm just wondering if like those two types of educations compete with each other.
I think it would help him be like a better king because he can obviously see two perspectives. And while I was reading this, I kind of thought about like how like during this time like democracy in America, you only had like two parties, I guess. I'm not sure how to explain it. Like the Republican is really understand and Democrats don't.
I was with Qianlong. Qianlong. So you're saying that this education was a way to open his mind so that because he wasn't going to rule a country that had many different ethnicities and different cultures coming together, it makes him more open-minded.
No, I'm saying that it's kind of reminding me how we don't have that with the political system in America. Like our politicians are very like one-sided. I feel like.
They don't study both parties.
Yeah, they don't like.
Like going back to the education, I think that like such a like strict education that could have like been the cause for a lot of these emperors. Like it's really like either hit or miss. Like they're either really good or really bad. So I think that could have been one of the factors because like we were in such a tight situation for so long and once you had that much freedom.
So do you think it was like a lack of education? Because didn't Qianlong have a brother who like we were saying, like somewhere it says mentions here that he liked to like play make-believe funeral and like he would be the dead person. Like what happened? Did he just not get as much education, or was he just a bad person? Like
the things that I've gathered is that, okay, first of all, we didn't mention it, and I'm just going to very quickly say, I found it really impressive. Who's our president? Oh, Obama. Okay, so Obama's kids are going to the Sidwell School in Washington D.C., private school, right? Because he didn't know when he was born, and neither did his single mother, who married a white woman who married a black man. You know that about Obama, right? His mom was white, father black, and dad leaves, and she's alone, dies of cancer because no health insurance, all sort of stuff. But she didn't know that her son was going to be president, so he just got like. He did go to a private school, Punahou. I have friends in Hawaii and Honolulu. But he just got like a basic AP education kind of thing, maybe IB, who cares? Anyway. So meanwhile, who would be teaching? Who would Kangxi choose to teach his chosen prince? And who did Yongjung teach? It mentions it. The greatest scholars in the realm. You would have Nobel Prize winners teaching you, the equivalent of, right? You would have the highest and best Chinese minds teaching you, right? Harvard professors. It's me one-on-one with Harvard professors because I'm being groomed to take this throne from birth. That's crazy. To answer your question though, even if I'm a Harvard professor or a Nobel Prize winner, all this kid has to do is make up a lie about me, say I fill in the blank, and tell daddy. And if he's a really good liar, my life is at stake. If his daddy believes any lie he makes up about me, right? So I can't.
They had to say good things about
Yeah, so
me.
I can't say, hey kids, stop playing I'm dead, everybody, like, stop playing funeral and study, or I'll spank you. You can't. You're like, oh hell, okay, well, he still gets an A+, but, is that?
Yeah.
Young Qianlong, at the end of the day, what are your thoughts on how fit he is to handle England? I'm ready to leave this behind if you have nothing more to say about the Elliot chapter.
Mr. Burrell,
Yes.
to be frank, I didn't get through that one. I could only get through this one.
Oh, well.
So I'm sure I would have stuff to say. So.
Okay, well let me just go on a couple more things for you before we leave. By the time Qianlong is 82 years old, obviously his prime is behind him. His accomplishments are behind him. He will be dead within 7 years. And this is the map. This is the China that he made. It was under him that China, and you do want to know this because this goes back to contemporary today's China and what Qianlong conquered. The Manchu were called a conquest dynasty because they did conquer first China, and then they conquered Mongolia. So notice, it's not a chicken anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's not a chicken anymore because Mongolia is now part of China. And the Taklamakan Desert, which, remember, the Silk Road went around, it was always at most a protectorate. And Tibet was never part of China. So notice, Qianlong finished the People's Republic's borders of China. Take away Mongolia, and this is today's China. I do want you to know about these two because arguments about Tibet will be around you for the rest of your life. Should Tibet be free or not? Because remember, we worship freedom. That's like the most important thing in the world. Oh, look at the poor starving person. What do you mean? Okay, so they're starving, but they're free. Freedom's the most important thing. They can eat freedom. They're not starving. They have freedom to eat. And so Tibet should be free. Qianlong is the one who brought Tibet into the fold. Now, I used to take interims down to Yunnan province down here, which is on the foothills, the lower slopes of the Tibet, not the foothills, it's 1,000 meters up. It's as high as Denver, Colorado, and the Rockies. But Tibet's the highest place in the world, so it's a very, very long, gradual slope down into the Yunnan region here. And this is where the tea region was. So tea was originally, there's a road up to Tibet from Yunnan, which was called the Tea Horse Road. Tibet would trade horses for Yunnanese tea. Before it was part of the Chinese Qing dynasty, before when it was independent, it was its own kingdom, they would trade horses to the Yunnanese, who would give them tea. Why did the Yunnanese really want these horses? It's a funny story. Guess why they really felt they needed them? To defend themselves against the Tibetans, who were always raiding them. So what do we learn about the Tibetans? Through that very historical fact. What do we learn about the Tibetans in their relationship to the Chinese interior? They were warlike. They were a threat to the neighbor people, like the Yunnanese down here in the south, the Thai people and such. And Qianlong ended that Tibet tension by bringing Tibet into the Chinese empire. Xinjiang. We've talked about this before.
So Tibet's not Buddhist yet?
No, Tibet has always been Buddhist. Since the age of Buddha. Huh?
And yet they're warlike?
Yes. Now they're Tibetan Buddhists. But you know what? So the West is Christian, and yet it's warlike?
But didn't you say that
Jesus said turn the other cheek. Jesus is kind of a pacifist kind of guy. So how can Christians be warlike?
didn't you say Mongolia became Buddhist and they stopped?
And it did pacify their, yeah. Yeah.
What makes Tibet so special?
I suppose the same thing that there are good Westerners who are like, we should not be imperialistic. We should not conquer other lands and take all of their goods and impoverish them and enslave them. That's not good. We really shouldn't do that. But there are other people who are Christian who are like, nah, I don't know. And so I imagine that Tibet had I imagine that Tibet had a similar problem. I will tell you. Oh, well, there's one more thing too. Oh my God. The other area that you want to know about before we leave this behind. I'm not going to fight it. I'll put it on the thing. The other area that you want to know is the Taklamakan region. Xin means what? Xin means new. Xin, Xin means new. Jiang, Xinjiang. New territory. I don't know the right term. Xinjiang, new territory. So Qianlong enlarged the borders of China by adding 3 different ethnic groups. Mongolia, the Mongols, they are now part of China. Xinjiang, and Tibet. Tibet is all Tibetan, so they're Tibetan Buddhist. Mongols are Mongolian, and they are their own Buddhist, plus shamanistic and other tribal types of things. Xinjiang, I've told you this before, but it's in the news all the time now. So I'm giving you, so what is Xinjiang? What's the religion of Xinjiang? Muslim. So it's a Muslim territory, and it has a border with Pakistan, and worse yet, of all the Muslim countries, in terms of extremism, which one's the one that you don't want to have on your border? Because there's things like the Taliban there, Afghanistan, which does come over and touch China at the border on Xinjiang. So Xinjiang shares a border with Afghanistan, Taliban country, the most extreme Islamic country in the world. The name of and these are Turkish people, they are not Chinese, they look Turkish, and their tribal name is, who knows it? Who knows what the Xinjiang people are called, what their tribe is? They call themselves Uyghur. Oh, I'm a Uyghur. U-Y-G, the hardest word ever spelled. U-I-G-H-E-R? Yeah, I've seen it spelled a couple of ways. And I'm not even going to try to spell it. I'm not even going to try to spell it. But the Uyghurs. Now, so again, going back to, you will hear 2 things, and so I'm going to quickly give you the Chinese argument about, Tibet should be free. 3 years ago, it was like Human Rights Day or something. Singapore, very American school. Human Rights Day. So let's defend human rights all around the world. And Prayush Pushkarna, love him to death, said, Mr. Bro, would you like to sign our Free Tibet thing and buy a Free Tibet t-shirt so that Tibet will be free because of that? And you want to save Tibet, Mr. Bro? All you got to do is buy a t-shirt and sign a piece of paper. Saved. Done. So nice to save the world. And I said, which one of you is Wish and which one of you is Bush? You have to have paid attention to the Taoism drawings of lesson to get that. Because they want to save all fools. They want to save the Tibetan people. The Chinese argument is this. Oh, really? Do you know what it was like to be Tibet when it was free? Well, here's what it was like. It was a Buddhist theocracy. The Dalai Lama, who is Hollywood's favorite guru, he's a bestseller. He writes in English and he tells really lovely jokes, and he's a charming man. He was on the CIA payroll as well. He was. This is historical fact. You can see the declassified documents. The CIA paid the Dalai Lama during the Cold War. Right? So his celebrity is probably owing to a certain amount of promotion on the part of CIA funding and such. But in any case, when Qianlong conquered the Tibetans, he was himself a badass warrior type. He was a Manchu. So the Mongols and the Qing had a good relationship because we're all tribal people, we're all like steppe people. The Tibetan and the Mongols were Buddhist, and Qianlong was also Buddhist. And so there are paintings of Qianlong with Buddhist emanations going around him, like he is an incarnation of the Buddha. Mandala-looking things, where you see Qianlong in this type of art, with a little qianlong on top of him, you know, like infinite qianlongs, right? Qianlong Buddhas. Don't look at this too closely because it's very Tibetan Buddhist. And it's not particularly Disney rated. So all of these tribal people that Qianlong conquered, he did not impose Chinese, quote, rule on. Hong Kong, when the People's Republic took Hong Kong back from England today, Hong Kong doesn't have to follow the Beijing laws. It's called one country, two systems. Even in Imperial China under Qianlong, the Tibetan people continued following the ways of the Tibetan people, but they were part of China. They were part of the empire. The Muslims followed the Muslim ways. So they were very, very tolerant of and respectful of local traditions and leadership things. They didn't replace them. Does that make sense to you? So it was not as if they brutally like enslaved or anything else. No, they just conquered them. They said, you're part of us now. Now, how do you rule so that we can help you rule? But we end this war stuff between us and all sort of thing. And we're on the same side. That's Tibet under China. When the communists took over, what they saw, and here's their argument about Tibet, they saw this. What Qianlong honored was a theocracy in which the Dalai, the lamas, not the Dalai, the Dalai Lama is the highest lama. Lama is a Tibetan priest. The highest lamas lived in their splendid, splendid temple complexes that you've seen in the movies, right? High in the Himalayas, those Tibetan palaces. And the Tibetan people themselves were living serf-like lives. And I've read like Tibetan scholars, Tibetan historians on this stuff, where they were kept in abject fear of damnation, hellfire, all sorts of stuff, and were exploited horribly. Lived in just absolute like necessities and no more, while me doing all the work. And so it was a feudal system, right? Where you got serfs and you got lords. And so the communists were like, we are liberating you from an ancient superstitious system. It wasn't any longer one country, two systems, the way it was in the Qing. But according to the Marxist, everything, people should be equal, they consider themselves liberated. So when people say free Tibet, and this is why I told the people who wanted me to save them by buying the t-shirt, I said, I'm not sure where I stand on it. And I'm not sure where I stand on it. Because if Tibet goes back to its traditional ways, you've got a priestly class telling the other Tibetans, okay, good, we're free again. So now, if you don't want to go to hell, you're going to give me everything, and you're going to continue working and living in absolute penury, so that I can live without having to work. I'm not sure I want to free Tibet, because I'm not sure that the majority of Tibetans would find it particularly enjoyable to go back to the old ways.
Why does the Dalai Lama, why does he need the Dalai Lama?
Because the Dalai Lama is the West's poster boy for how bad China is. The West is very scared of China attracting the world to its model instead of the Western model. We have to keep making China look bad and sinister and on and on and on. So the Dalai Lama has always been, look at China, they're against freedom. I always go, well, why isn't China inviting the last Hawaiian king over to Beijing? Because we took Hawaii at about the same time that the Dalai Lama fled China after World War II. You know that Hawaii only became part of America in 1950. The Hawaiians didn't say, hey, please, America, come take us over. And America doesn't even have the excuse, oh, well, Hawaii is raiding California. No, it's in the middle of the ocean, right? So yeah, we use Tibet as a cudgel to demonize China. And China surprisingly doesn't go, yeah, well, what about Hawaii, America? You give Hawaii back, we'll get Tibet. It's a weird thing. But in any case, so those are the things that Qianlong added. The last thing I have to tell you is this. What is France doing? Because it has a Muslim problem right now with religious rights. Anybody know? They're restricting more than freedom of speech. They're passing laws to discriminate against Muslims by forcing them to do what sorts of things? Beyond the headwear, the whole burqa thing, right? So notice here in Singapore, they still let women wear the burqas, the full black thing, right? So you don't see the face, you don't see anything. They just banned it because Charlie have their tight situations and Xinjiang, right? And
What is the logic behind that?
well, yeah, what's fear? Fear that underneath that burqa is not a woman, but a guy with TNT belt strapped around his waist, walking into the train station. It's a horrible dilemma, but we do it, right? So they're all struggling. So these are the situations that you will hear about, and so I just gave you sort of it started with Qianlong. Tibet has been sort of part of China for the past 300 years, 250 years since Qianlong, and so has this Muslim territory. So China's claim on them, free Tibet, well, Tibet has been part of us since the 1700s, sort of thing. We don't often hear that argument in the West. Right? When did Tibet become part of China? Here, in the Qing. But there is the difference that traditional China said, you be you, go ahead and be Tibetan, that's your way. The People's Republic, they don't do that, because that's unequal. So we're gonna, although the Dalai Lama and Xi Jinping are starting to talk, and Xi Jinping is starting to say, the Dalai Lama has been interviewed and he's like saying, Xi Jinping is different, the new guy's different. We're starting to talk, maybe I'll go back to China. In which case China haters will go, damn. This is sort of the status of events. I'm just giving you that. Okay, now. In the remaining 5 minutes. Oh, what are your pictures of? Oh well, I want it. You remember that little picture I showed you that I then blew up and you said, ooh. Okay. Gather around, boys and girls. I showed it really large on that. I'll pass it to you. What are your pictures of the standard of the standard of life, the quality of living, standards of living in the Qing dynasty? Do you get the sense that it was? Would you want to live during the Qing dynasty?
Order.
Check it out. This is a painting from the Qing dynasty.
Where'd you get this?
In the library that Qianlong studied in the morning when he woke up every morning. In that reading room, that's where I got this. I was in that room and I bought this. So this actually has a connection to Qianlong 300 years ago. It was in the same place he was. The same room, the same roof over his head. Come on, come over here. I'll send you the picture. Even if I've showed you this before, I'll send you the image because that was and I was going to let you see the details of it because that's high resolution. You can go to the Taipei Museum's website, get close and look at it because this is Qing Dynasty era painting, and you can see what life was like. Sorry, let's get it all the way across. This is its actual authentic size, and so it tells a story. While also it doesn't really tell a story, but it tells many stories. The level of detail is amazing. You'll see people flying kites on the hills, all sorts of stuff. So it is to be watched so slowly. It starts in the countryside. It's the Grand Canal. It goes under this rainbow bridge, and you see eventually it gets to the city, and you pass through the city gate, through the walls, and you're downtown. And so it is an eyewitness depiction of city life, the streets, the types of trade going on. The more you look at it, the more amazing, wonderful things you see. River life, economic life, the things on the boats, sort of social life. You see little bars and singing houses. The life on this bridge is so funny. They're all like engaged in real things. And so you do see how well organized and how economically just prosperous
So who are these people?
life was under the Qing.
Who are these people?
Well, those are called palanquins. Those sedan chairs that are carried around. So those are going to be scholar officials or royals, or their ladies. And it's just full of economic activity. Where's the boat scene? Is this the only rainbow bridge? There's a really funny thing going on here. You see all these people on this bridge sort of yelling down because it seems like this bridge is about to hit, this boat is about to hit the bridge. And so there's a lot of yelling and rope pulling by boat towers here. And people on top of the bridge yelling, going, yeah! At the expo, the Shanghai Expo, they had this done into a high resolution flexible screen that you could roll like this, but it was a video screen, right? With high resolution animations of this, about 20 feet high, like 2 stories high, and it stretched around an entire room. They brought it down here to the Singapore Expo Center, and like a couple of students and I went to it, the Expo Center down near Changi Airport, and it filled the entire warehouse of the Expo Center. It was animated, so you saw the sun rise on this scene, and you saw all of these people walking around doing their business. You saw this whole thing was animated
at the same time.
At the same time, and so you're walking around watching a day in the life of Song Dynasty or Qing Dynasty.
What is it called?
The Qing Ming Scroll.
But you can probably get it like the animated version on YouTube.
I've got a DVD of it. Yeah. This Qing Dynasty, Ming, like Ming Dynasty, the Qing Ming Scroll, which is like this spring festival. Yeah, the sun went up. People started walking around with their wares and digging wells, cleaning wells, all sorts of stuff. And the sun went down, and women were singing, and elegant looking, but I wouldn't bring my kids there. Little bars, 2 tables of men in their silks and such, and other guys were drinking and all sorts of stuff in the taverns. And people were doing their business. It was great. It was incredibly great, actually. So, and this is Qianlong's. Qianlong, being a Renaissance man, did write colophons. These are called colophons down here. These commentaries on things. So this is Qianlong's commentary on it, and I told you how all those stamps work, right? Those are all people who have viewed. I own this. I don't put it on my wall, I'll show off. Yeah, I'm rich, I've got a masterpiece. I keep it in a nice box, and when people who I like come over, I honor them by showing it to them. And if they really like it, I'm like, would you like to put your stamp on it? And they do. And their stamp's on a masterpiece forevermore. And here we are looking at it. If we could read Chinese, if we weren't barbarians, we would be able to actually say who these people were. The history of this social showing this thing. So that's all.
It's one random
Some guy was like, hi.
And you know what? Every time I see something like that, and I talk to somebody who's lucky enough to be able to read, I'm like, let me guess, Qianlong. They're like, yeah. You travel China, he wrote on everything. Qianlong, because he was insecure. To go back to that question, do you feel like he really was confident? There were indications that he was scared witless of the weight on his shoulder of ruling. It's scary to have so much responsibility, and I'm insecure. And so I'm going to overcompensate by being the biggest art collector, the most scholarly, write more poetry than anybody else. He was trying to prove himself. And so everywhere you go in China, you see him writing his imperial comments about all the great artwork stuff everywhere.
Yeah, intelligent comments, right?
Yeah. I like it.
Nice.
But I like Kangxi best. I like Kangxi best. Now, and this is sort of the end of the Qing dynasty, because it's going to be a cripple for the next 110 years when we come back to class next time, and 30 years have passed and it's been opened up. So, yeah, we'll move forward. Who do you like better though, Qianlong or Kangxi? I know it's hard to tell. Kangxi's the most awesome guy in the world. He put his son in prison. I love that. I love that, right? And he slept You slept on animal furs in the buff. What else? Did you like the concubine scene? Did we talk about that?
Which one?
I said Janet.
Yeah, which one?
Oh yeah, we did talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some
There was also like a
mixed feelings.
There's also one that where like Qianlong went and went to school with some of Kangshi's younger sons,
Which were
even though they were
actually
his
uncles.
dad's
Yeah.
brothers and his uncles. That's so weird.
Oh, but just another. I mean, do you see why I love Kanshi so much? You've read enough of him now to have a sense of this man. He's so funny, and he's so fair, and he's so impressive in every way.
Still think a bit of Jack.
Because of the
Yeah, I'm still.
throwing toy things.
I'm still not convinced that he was flirting.
You're not convinced he was flirting.
He was
Yeah.
lusty.
What do you think he was doing instead? Oh, you mean that he was? Look, he didn't have to flirt. He was the emperor. He could just like decree. Yeah. Okay, I'm hungry. Bring food. Okay, I'm bring. Right. Saved by the Bell. Stop. What? Oh, the last 7 months of his life with little Qianlong. Didn't you love that? His last 7 months. I like this kid, and so inseparable. He treated him like he treated Verbeest when he was little. And I've always got little Qianlong by my side. And then he died. Bye. Louis, I'm going to start calling you Rico.
Rita? Oh no.
Do you not approve of Kanshi, Louis?
I wouldn't. He's brilliant. He's amazing. Yada 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 yada. He's a jerk.
He's a jerk!
Louis a feminist.
Hey, I gave a speech on this.
He's a jerk!
He's a jerk.
You know what? If anybody else would have had most of the Catholics in China drawn and quartered long ago, would have like sent bombs to the Pope. He was incredibly unjerky. He was so gracious to them.
Send bombs to the Pope.
What should he have been?
Respectful to women.
Oh, because he should have been a 20th century feminist.
What's wrong with the 20th century feminist?
Well,
didn't
nothing
exist.
except it came 200 years later, 300 years later.
That doesn't mean that
He should have been like Louis XVI, as feminist as Louis the 14th, and all the other feminist white people. No, look, feminism was a new movement because it had never existed before feminism.
I'll discuss this later when I'm not late for class. Bye, Miss Brill.
Bye. No, I've got, I'll put this out. Get a new bottle because we've got some product purifying drops that we're using in a lot of places. So a 1 liter bottle is what I've got in the email for you guys to bring your major lock out there.
She's like really worried about the sleeper seats. So when we get this back, the emphasis.
Again, I told Karen I don't do the podcast.
Or we know I'm staying.
Tell me your name again.
I am not going back.
Okay, Justin and Jacob. Your friend Justin.
You're gonna sit in the normal seats, right?
I don't know. Well, guys, don't.
Oh, so
She's a relative. Try my tea. I sit over there again.
Okay,
China for him.
hand over chairs.
Wait, the video is recording. I imported tea from China for
Okay,
him.
we'll switch you some chairs. Otherwise, Colin and Zach are gonna have
I won't fall asleep again. I brought a lot of candy.
okay. I believe you.
This good? Hello, is this good? Yo, yo, yo. We'll get Barry. You want me to sit there?
I'll sit next to James.
No,
you sit over there.
we've got to switch. I'm not saying for the
No,
next
over
day.
here.
And I think this half of the table should come go there. This half of the
No,
table.
no, can you squeeze no more
No.
seats?
Just sit where you.
I like my seat. Okay.
I don't like that.
Humans like structure, and I'm going to break
Okay, this
structure.
tea is roughly, it's pretty new. Here, man.
You come to class early, you gotta choose your
Hey,
seat.
I'm gonna be home at 4.
That's the rule.
Oh,
Oh, sweet. We coming back.
First come, first serve.
You guys care.
I'm trying
Make sure no one sees you, okay? Did I just lose my bottle